It's Kyler, and today I'll be reviewing The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. This is the second book in the Kingkiller Chronicles, with the first book being The Name of the Wind. Super excited to read this book when I picked it up. The Name of the Wind was my favorite book that I read last year. Loved it. 10 out of 10, 5 stars, however you want to rate it. So going into reading the second book in the trilogy, super excited. I absolutely love this book. Did I like it as much as The Name of the Wind? No, but I still loved it a lot. So, like this would be more like 9 out of 10, 4 out of 5 stars. Still a great book, just not quite as good for my enjoyment level as The Name of the Wind. Since this is a trilogy, and this is the second book in the trilogy, I don't want to really get into a lot of the plot points in case you haven't started the trilogy yet, or if you haven't read this book yet. I'm going to more kind of highlight elements of the book that I enjoyed, what were my thoughts going into the book, what surprised me about it, what disappointed me about it. So I'll do my best to avoid spoilers and not really get into detailed plot points. So hopefully that makes sense. But if some of the, remarks that sound confusing, if you haven't read the first book, this review probably won't make a whole lot of sense. I'd honestly recommend don't watch the review. After you've read the first book, I would honestly recommend reading the second book first, but if you've read the first book, I think you're safe to watch this review, because again, I'm going to avoid spoilers the best of my ability. So I would say one of the things that kind of surprised me going into this book, I guess my prediction for the second book was, we know from the first book there's some sort of wars broke out, and then our main character is heavily involved in starting it, fighting it, all that type of stuff. So I thought the second book we were going to get a lot of background on this war. The first book mainly focused on him as a student at the academy, or I should say the university. And I thought, we might start at the university, but I thought we would quickly leave the university. Instead, it was almost nearly the first half of the book we were still at the university. Still love that part, and in fact, that's some of my favorite parts of this book. It just kind of caught me off guard that we stayed at the university for that long. I wasn't really expecting that, but I will say, the stuff at the university I really enjoyed. I felt like the characters, his friends, the fellow students, the teachers, those characters were even better developed in this book. I really enjoyed all their interactions. Loved that element of the book. I actually thought his leaving the university would be like him being kicked out, and instead that's not the case. He's actually doing very well, but a court case is brought against him. He's able to beat it off, and he's found not guilty. He beats the charges, but it brought so much attention to the university. Basically, his friends and some of his professors basically advised, I think you should take like a year off and just travel, because he brought a lot of bad attention to the university, and it'd be better if you kind of got away, and when you come back, it won't be quite as big of a deal. So I would say the equivalent in the real world for us would be something like taking a year off from school to go spend a year in Europe backpacking around and stuff like that. Get an idea what the real world's like. And so that's kind of the next half of the book. I didn't really enjoy this part of the book as much as I did the university stuff. Mainly because there wasn't quite as much action. I didn't find the side characters as interesting. A lot of the characters that he's interacting with are not really his friends, like his people at the university. It's more like people he has to work with, and they have like negative aspects of him, especially the first city he goes to, where he's basically becoming kind of a secret agent for this ruler of this city. And some of the stuff he does there is very cool, but like most people he's dealing with are not really good people. So I didn't really enjoy those interactions quite as much. Some of the concepts I found really cool and interesting. But that wasn't my favorite part of the book. I really enjoyed it when he actually left the city and then gets put in charge of trying to track down some robbers. I found that part more interesting, more action-packed, because I was waiting for him to kind of see his introduction in becoming a warrior. And that's really, I would say, once we get on this segment of the book, is really he begins to see his path to becoming like art. We know he's a talented musician. We know he's this talented magician, basically, for lack of a better term. Now we're beginning to see his path. How does he become this legendary warrior and fighter? Even though he's very young, he begins to develop his leadership qualities during this aspect of the book, how he interacts with different people. I enjoyed that insight into him. but I was at this point in the book, this is one where I kind of realized, like, in the first book, one element I enjoyed a lot is throughout the story we kept on going back to the end and present days as he's relating the stories, and there's kind of some clarification, there's some kind of plot points that's happening in the present day versus him telling the stories of what happened, and I enjoyed that part a lot in the first book. And I realized in the second book, it's like, we're going long periods with not going back to the end at all. I wish a few more little scenes at the end had taken place to kind of want to break up some of the plot, so you get a little, you don't get too bored with the plot staying in one point for too long. And also, I enjoyed the characters at the end, so I'd have liked to have seen them a little bit more in the book. But as this goes along, as the robbers are caught, and we get a very cool fight scene, which I think was a really cool combat scene, a mixture of actual combat and some magic. I thought that was really cool. We then get to see some supernatural elements when he goes in the Fey realm. I wasn't really expecting that to happen in the book, but I guess it kind of makes sense when he got into it. This is part I felt like it went on a little bit too long. I enjoyed elements of it, but I was like, I don't know if I needed quite this much in this period. But I did enjoy the aspect when he gets back and he finally meets up with his friends and that he'd hunted the robbers with, and they've already began telling stories about him because they assumed he was dead, and he pops in and it just makes his legend grow even bigger. So that's really cool. Then we get him going off to the mountains to kind of train with what in his world they were termed as mercenaries. When he gets there, he realizes they really consider themselves mercenaries, and this is where he gets really his hardcore training of how to become a really legendary warrior. Again, I enjoyed this part. Felt like it dragged on a little bit longer, and this is again when I would liked a few breaks in the action to kind of go back to the end. I think would have made this part more entertaining instead of getting a little repetitive in a few spots. Towards the end of the book, I would say a few of the elements I really enjoyed. I liked the fact when he basically begins to start hearing stories about himself in random places, and this is where we begin to see like that his legend is beginning to grow bigger than he really is, and he begins to realize this, like, oh, this is getting out of hand. Like, people are beginning to think I'm gonna have like these godlike powers, and I'm just a person. So it's almost like getting to see a game of telephone play out in a book. So I thought that was really cool. I did enjoy them getting back to the university, getting to see those characters that I enjoyed a lot from the first half of the book again. Caught me off guard of how the book ended. What initially is a bad ending, I was kind of expecting to happen like on more of a bigger element than what it did. So I'm kind of curious to see how the story plays out if and when the third book comes out. But overall, like I said, I enjoyed this book. Did I enjoy it as much as the first book? No, but I enjoyed it a lot. So if you've read the first book and you're trying to decide like, oh, should I read the second book? Go for it. It's really cool, really awesome. It's a great series. I think like most people, obviously hoping the third book does come out. Who knows when it will. But I really enjoyed it a lot. So if you've read The Wise Men's Fear, let me know. What were your favorite elements of the book? What did you like? What did you not like? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this review, please hit the like button. I really appreciate the support. If you want to see my review for The Name of the Wind, there'll be a link somewhere up here, so check that out. Also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the support. So, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review. I'll see you the next time, and happy reading.